Right now, the absolute highest stakes conflict in the global economy isn't being fought over borders or territory. It's literally being fought over atoms. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive structural shift in how our entire world operates. We are witnessing what is essentially a global cage match to control the physical resources and the processing factories that are absolutely crucial for our technological future. Let's get right into it. Financial Sense recently hit the nail on the head, noting that the next great global conflict isn't over land, but the critical metals and resources that power our modern-day world. I mean, think about it. We are entering a historic resource war, driven by a massive collision of three things: AI, the green energy transition, and shifting geopolitics. Everything from the cost of the device you're watching this on to the stability of your local power grid depends on a supply chain that is currently being pushed to its absolute limits. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with Welcome to Supercycle 2.0, then look at AI and green energy demand, followed by the global supply squeeze, the geopolitical resource war, and finally, the winners and losers for 2026. Okay, Section 1. Welcome to Supercycle 2.0, the paradigm shift. So think back to the early 2000s for a second. That commodities supercycle was largely driven by China's rapid urbanization, right? It was incredibly fuel intensive. We were burning massive amounts of coal and oil to build cities out of iron and steel. But Supercycle 2.0, it's an entirely different beast. This one is driven by AI, decarbonization, and deglobalization. It is fiercely material intensive. Instead of burning fuels, we're heavily reliant on extracting physical materials, stuff like copper, silver, and lithium, just to build the foundation of our new technological era. Moving on to Section 2, AI and green energy demand, the engines of demand. We often think of artificial intelligence as this invisible magic living purely in the cloud, but we really need to rethink that. The reality of AI is heavy industry. It is a massive physical infrastructure reality. The AI race is going to be won in kilowatts, not in code. Today's data centers aren't just your standard server rooms anymore. They are sprawling facilities covering square miles, running 24/7, and they require a staggering amount of continuous power. Energy analyst Mark Mills actually calls AI the most energy-hungry form of compute ever invented. And the numbers back that up. Data center power demand in the US alone is rocketing from about 10 gigawatts back in 2023 to an estimated 80 gigawatts by 2026. To put that into perspective, just 1 gigawatt is enough to power a city of 500,000 people. So we are essentially building the equivalent of several major cities' worth of power demand, literally in just a few years. It's wild. And to actually deliver all that power, you need materials. 25,000 tons. That's roughly the weight of 100 Statues of Liberty. That is the amount of copper required to build out just a single 1 gigawatt AI data center. You need that copper for the high voltage tables, the transformers, the cooling loops, all the power generation. Because of this, the demand for copper is effectively decoupling from traditional economic cycles. This tech infrastructure mandate is moving forward regardless of what the broader economy is doing. And all this creates a massive multiplier effect. If you replace a gas-powered plant with an offshore wind farm, you need 6 times the mineral input. It's the same story with transportation. An electric vehicle takes 6 times more minerals, think lithium, nickel, silver, cobalt, than your traditional combustion engine car. Basically, our shift toward green energy has put an incredibly solid structural floor right underneath the demand for these critical metals. Which brings us to Section 3, the global supply squeeze, mining the deficit. Now, we have to talk about a severe duration mismatch. It takes roughly 2 years to build a massive AI data center. But what about a new copper mine? Well, from the initial exploration through feasibility studies, strict environmental, social, and governance reviews, and then navigating a whole maze of permitting approvals, you are looking at up to 15 years just to get the very first production out of the ground. 15 years. That mismatch is the absolute core of today's supply squeeze. We're trying to build the technology of tomorrow on a timeline that the physical world simply cannot match right now. Compounding this whole timeline issue is a severe lack of investment. Global capital expenditure in mining is currently sitting at 30-year lows. For the last decade, mining companies have been laser-focused on capital discipline, basically paying out dividends instead of spending money to discover new mines. Add to that the fact that we're dealing with declining ore grades, meaning we have to dig up way more dirt just to get the exact same amount of usable metal, all while adhering to much stricter ESG constraints. Let's look at silver as a prime example of how this squeeze plays out. In 2025, the price of silver surged a whopping 156%. Why? Because we have completely stagnant mine supply crashing right into surging industrial demand. This is especially true for solar panels. Each panel uses about 20 grams of silver, as well as EVs. This setup instantly triggers a massive structural market deficit, estimated right now at 230 million ounces. It's a classic scenario, an unstoppable wave of demand hitting a completely unmovable wall of supply. All right, Section 4, the geopolitical resource war, control of the midstream. Here is where the true bottleneck lies, and it's absolutely crucial to understand. It isn't just about who actually has the raw dirt in the ground, it's about who has the facilities to process it. China currently holds a massive midstream processing monopoly. We're talking 98% of gallium, 90% of rare earths, and up to 70% of refined silver. This means that even if Western countries mine the raw materials, they are still largely dependent on China's processing infrastructure to refine that dirt into usable components from modern technology. Because of this geopolitical fragmentation and new trade barriers, like the 50% US tariffs on copper and aluminum imports, global supply chains are essentially being ripped up and redrawn. Logistics planners are now leaning heavily into advanced commodity trading and risk management, or CTRM, systems. They're furiously integrating real-time shipping risk data and trying to hedge against the inefficiencies of friendshoring. Friendshoring, moving supply chains to allied countries, is great for national security, but let me tell you, it's often way more expensive and incredibly complex to manage on a global scale. And finally, Section 5, Winners and Losers 2026, the market fallout. We are currently witnessing what you could call a great divergence in the commodities market. Looking at 2026, we're seeing massive structural demand for electrification metals. Copper is swinging into an estimated 1 million metric ton deficit, driven completely by AI data centers and EVs. Silver is sitting at historic highs, pushing past $83 an ounce, thanks to solar demand and huge supply deficits. But on the flip side, traditional crude oil is facing a looming supply glut. It's being weighed down by rising non-OPEC production and just a general sluggishness in global fuel consumption. The divergence here is just incredibly stark. So I want to leave you with a final thought to really chew on. If control of midstream processing determines material sovereignty, who will actually dictate the tempo of Western innovation? As we transition into this intensely material-intensive future, our ability to build, to compute, and to grow is going to depend entirely on these physical supply chains. I really hope this explainer gave you a clearer picture of the forces shaping Supercycle 2.0. Definitely keep your eyes on the commodities market because it is literally the foundation for everything that comes next.